Now, we couldn't have a better speaker than the chairman, and we couldn't have better weather in the end of September. So, I know it's going to be powerful, it's going to be great. His book is amazing, as he is, so we know it's all truth. So, everybody enjoy yourself, and thank you all for coming out. Thank you, Chairman, for just gracing us.
Welcome, everyone, to this wonderful, awesome event. And first of all, we want to thank the source of knowledge for everything. You've got to be connected to this. They are the source. They are a tremendous source in this community, and we just love them. My name is Lisa Davis. I'm with the Black is Back Coalition and NPDOM. I want to bring up Brother Bakra. He's with the African People's Socialist Party. You're going to say something?
I'm Bakra. I'm a member of the African People's Socialist Party and NPDOM.
Yes.
So
yes.
we're two of the members of the UHURU movement in the New Jersey area, and we're the people that we try to grow the awareness that what the UHURU movement is doing, and people to join us in that effort.
Yes.
And we say, you'll hear the word UHURU. We say that all the time. It means freedom in Swahili. So we want people to always have freedom on their minds.
Yeah.
So we greet each other and we say goodbye, we say hello, UHURU.
And Brother Ushindi is another local member in Newark, and we really do want to build up this movement. And also, before we get started, we want to recognize some people. Somebody was supposed to be here.
Yes.
We wanted him to be here so much, but Dr. Leonard Jeffries, who is in this book.
Yes.
He was a member of the first tribunal that they ever held on reparations was under the vision of Omali Yeshitela and the UHURU movement. And by holding that first tribunal in 1982, that is what helped to make reparations a household name. That was part of their goals. And so Dr. Leonard Jeffries was supposed to be here. I was talking to him. He just could not make it at the last minute. There was a funeral that he had to go to. We want to let him know that we honor him, we acknowledge him, and our heart is with him. And he is in this book. And so we want to acknowledge him. Also, we want to recognize various other members of the UHURU movement. It's very important that people know about Penny Hester. We'd like to stand up a moment. She is one of the UHURU three because they have come after our chairman, the United States government, July 29th in 2022. Brother Tyrone, we got two. They did clone Tyrone. We got two. Tyrone and Tyrone, too. They cloned them. They did it. I knew they were going to do that. They cloned them.
And he hasn't been able to live that down since
But we got two of them right there. They cloned them.
Thank you, sir.
But anyway, the chairman, they'll tell you a lot more about that, but they falsely accused him. Omali Yeshitela has been organizing in this movement for over 50 years. He is a powerful force, and he's on the forefront of the Black liberation and African liberation movement. And he's also an excellent theoretician, in terms of strategy and the science of this movement. But in July 29th of 2022, last year, they attacked him. The FBI launched an unprecedented, I shouldn't say unprecedented, but an unwarranted attack on the African Socialist Party and members of the UHURU movement. And Penny Hester is one of the people who have been indicted. She works with the UHURU Solidarity movement, who have been indicted. And they're facing 10 to 15 years in prison for speaking up, for standing out, for organizing in the community. And so when they attack, we just fight back. We fight back anyway, but we come out even stronger. And one of the horrible accusations, false, scurrilous accusations, there are so many, is that he was working for the Russians. And he was one of the first people that I know of that spoke out and condemned what was going on with the Ukraine war and a lot of things that people are saying now. He was one of the first people to say that. He also just was speaking truth to power about Russia, that they had never invaded us or enslaved us. And he also was one of the people to help put reparations on the ballot. We know that Marion Williamson has, when she was running in her campaign in 2020, she talked about reparations, put it on the, maybe put it on the national campaign. Well, prior to that, the Black is Back Coalition with our electoral campaign school that we began to organize, and it was Chairman Omali's suggestion, but we were all behind it, and we began to say, here's how you put reparations, here's how you put liberation on the ballot, you put it there, you find these candidates, and you run campaigns around that, and we have been doing that, and we're like, you don't have to fall with this vote for Democrat or Republican, vote for black liberation, put out the 19-point platform, and so they were so effective because they ran candidates. I think it was what,
2017, 2019.
Right. They ran candidates in St. Petersburg around reparations, and they were so effective in that campaign that it made international news and about how they were running this campaign around the issue of reparations, and the UHURU Solidarity Movement says unity through reparations. So I'm just very honored, very humbled to introduce the chairman, Omali Yeshitela. I've been involved in the UHURU movement for about 15 years with the Black to Black Coalition, and it is just so inspiring. And I'll just say this much, because we know we are always under attack and everything, but you need to be with a powerful organization that is fearless. Courage is something that you got to exercise sometimes. Some of us might be born with it, but sometimes you got to exercise it. So I'm just going to let the chairman come up, Chairman Omali Yeshitela,
okay.
And he's going to give you some powerful history. Every day I'm learning things that I did not know before. So again, we appreciate all of you for coming, and we thank you. Omali Yeshitela.
First of all, I'd like to express my appreciation to Sister Lisa for that introduction. Where should I be, Sister Patrice? Am I okay now? And I have to express appreciation to Sister Patrice and the source of knowledge. It's not a little thing that you have here. There used to be quite a few black bookstores throughout this country, and they have disappeared. And I don't know how source of knowledge has been able to stay here, but there's incredible institutions in our community. It's not just that you have an opportunity to read some stuff or come to a source of knowledge, but it's a cultural phenomenon too. And one of the struggles that we are involved in, despite the fact that it's not spoken of that much today, is the whole question of the culture of literacy, right? And especially now, when there are so many people engaged in social media militancy, that's the extent to which so many people are involved in anything about our people. And there's this notion that somehow we have all these friends, we have these likes and people we've never seen before, and they exist in this mysterious place that they call cyberspace. In fact, in so many ways, it's not real. But the fact is, here we have this extraordinary institution. I just want to express my appreciation for your being here and for the struggles I know you have to go through in order to keep this place alive. And they haven't just kept it alive, they keep expanding it, and growing it, and that's remarkable. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, and to acknowledge you, Sister Patrice. She's an extraordinary name too. Usually I wouldn't say that Patrice is an extraordinary name, but you know one of the reasons we say it's extraordinary, don't you? That was Patrice Lumumba, right? Who the United States government participated in killing, right? The first elected, democratically elected Prime Minister of Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, Patrice Lumumba. And so the United States, along with France and Belgium, they actually were engaged in a contest to hunt him down and to murder him. And they eventually did murder him, right? So I just wanted to appreciate you, Sister Patrice, and this institution, all of you for coming out. It's been mentioned that on July 29th of last year, the federal government, the United States government attacked me, attacked my home, attacked 7 homes and businesses and offices of our movement in 2 different states, in St. Petersburg, Florida, and St. Louis, Missouri. It came at 5 o'clock in the morning, pre-dawn, and nobody is expecting to be attacked at 5 o'clock in the morning like that. It's fortunate my wife and I, we were both awake when it happened, because if we had not been awake, we may have been killed, because we were not simply going to just lay there and then somebody's invading the house with flashbang grenades and things like that. When we first heard this call out of the darkness about everybody who's in this house, in this residence, should come out with your hands up and your hands empty. So initially, we were startled and thought that it might have been one of these warnings about a tornado coming. You know, we're relatively new to the St. Louis area, so we thought it might have been a tornado warning. And so initially, we couldn't believe what we were hearing, and they said it again, this is the FBI. And that people who are at this residence should come out with your hands up and your hands empty. And then flashbang grenades, explosions started going off all around the house. And I didn't know it at the time, but even in the back stairwell of our home, they were igniting flashbang grenades. So these explosions were going on at the same time this was happening. So I asked my wife, you know, to wait and let me go down first to see, you know, to get a peek what was going on, but she should call people, let them know we're under siege. She tried to call, but she was unsuccessful because they had jammed our phones, so we couldn't communicate with anybody. I get downstairs, and as I'm coming out of the door, and I live, by the way, right now in the most impoverished sector of St. Louis, Missouri. It's in the north side of St. Louis. It's 44 Bud is what they call it, Redbud Avenue. It's an extraordinarily impoverished. It's been changing some since we moved there, as we've changed certain aspects of life in St. Louis for the black community. But when I get downstairs, I open the door, and I'm greeted by a blinding light in my face, and then I could see that there was an armored vehicle parked in front of my house, and then there were these armed thugs in camouflage outfit, flak jackets on, military organization, and then they were using assault weapons with lasers, targeting devices on them, attached to them, and they were dotting my chest with these laser targeting devices. So they were letting me know that they could kill me if they wanted to. And of course, what's in my mind is what happened on December 4th, 1969. On December 4th. On December 4th, 1969, in Chicago, Illinois, when they came in and murdered Fred Hampton in his bed. They killed Fred Hampton, and that's what's going through my mind. So I assumed they were going to kill me when I came downstairs. That's exactly what I thought was going to happen. My wife, she's following me downstairs, and when she opens the door to come behind me, she's greeted by a drone that almost hits her in the face going up the stairs. So they occupied our home for like hours. And we couldn't call anybody, like I said, because they had jammed our phones. I get downstairs, and they zip-tied my hands behind my back. They handcuffed my wife behind her back when she gets downstairs. So we asked them, what is this about? What's going on? And they said later this morning, there's going to be an indictment of a Russian national in Russia. And your name is associated with this person, and we have a search warrant to exercise at your house here. So I said, let me see the search warrant. And they said, well, there is a search warrant, we just don't have it with us, but it's somewhere around that you're going to be able to see. So at the same time, they have us handcuffed, they have me zip-tied. They're saying that we can sit on the curb. You've seen this. You've seen them do this to people in our community. It's a humiliating kind of thing that they use to show who's boss, who's master, that kind of thing throughout our communities all the time. So I refused to sit on the curb. They said the same thing to my wife, we're not sitting on the curb. And so I'm harassing them, why are you doing this? What's going on? And they said there's an indictment that's going to be coming down later today in Tampa, Florida, indicting a Russian national who is in Russia, but if he ever comes to the United States, we're going to put him in jail. That's what they were saying. And they said, oh, and this is going to be in the news. This is going to be the news, right? And so this is the story that they are giving me. So finally, I'm challenging them. I'm not sitting in, well, you can sit in the back of the car then. I don't want to sit in your car. I want to sit on the curb. I want to split. I want to dip, as Wesley Snipes said, I want to bounce, right? I'm interested in bouncing. So I said, well, can we leave finally? They said, yeah, you can leave. So I said, but, you know, they got me zip-tied, right? And they had a real problem just getting the zip ties loose. They took the handcuffs off my wife. My car keys are upstairs. But I'm not going upstairs with them. They said, well, you can come upstairs and you can sit in this little area, but don't move while we... No, I'm not coming up there. You understand? I want to be out here where at least there's a possibility somebody can see what the hell is going on. They've cordoned off the community there. They put tape over the doorbell video of the neighbor next door, so nobody is supposed to be able to see what they're doing to us. And so anyway, they go upstairs to get my car keys. They come bring the car keys down. My wife and I leave, and so we live in the African community. We live, and the UHURU house is also in the African community, not far from where we live. So we said, let's go. The Solidarity Movement, Penny Hess, and other forces, they live in South St. Louis. And that's where the majority of white people who live in St. Louis live on the south side. We have a Solidarity Center in the south of St. Louis. So we're gonna go by there, and then when we get there, we see that the FBI's got that jacked up as well. The FBI agents all over the place, they've got that jacked up as well. So we can't call anybody, and we can't go here at the moment. They occupied the Solidarity Center for something like 7 hours. They used battering rams. They used battering rams. They broke windows. They took my cell phone. They looted the house there. They stole all the devices that we have for communications, etc. Laptops, the whole gamut. They did that. They, as I said, they had exploded flashbang grenades in the stairwell going upstairs in the back of the house. That at the moment I didn't know what was going on. So anyway, we get to the Solidarity Center. They've knocked down all the doors in the Solidarity Center. These battering rams, they're steel doors. They use battering rams to get through into the place. They go upstairs at the Solidarity Center where 2 comrades are living there. These are white people. They put handcuffs on them, held them at gunpoint during the same process, and went to Penny Hess's house where she lives and did a similar thing there. At the same time this is going on in St. Petersburg, Florida, which is where the UHURU house is located as well. They invaded the UHURU house in St. Petersburg, Florida. You can see videos of it. I mean, there are literally scores of them. I mean, there's scores of them who at the UHURU house there. We have a radio station. They took it temporarily off the air. They went up and invaded the archives. We have something like 56 years of archives, history of the party, and some history of our movement. They went there. I don't know exactly what they looted from that process as well. So this is what's going on. They stole devices. They stole financial. They went and stole our financial records and what have you. It was a looting expedition. It was a wild looting expedition that they initiated against us. So that happened on July 29th, 2022. And then they characterized us as unindicted co-conspirators with the Russians. Like the Russians, we're conspiring with the Russians. And so we are unindicted. This went for 9 months. And this thing about being an unindicted co-conspirator is part of what they do to disarm you. Because you have no standing in a court. You can't go to court and say, they're doing this to me, therefore I want to have to file some kind of legal objection because they haven't done anything to you. You're unindicted. Everybody knows it, but they haven't used your name. Everybody saw the raids when they raided us. Subsequently asked the people who lived next to us where they put the tape on the doorbell video. I asked them, did you get any footage? Did you get any video? Did you get any of the stuff? They said, no, we didn't get anything. We were hiding. We thought they were coming for us. And then when I was in St. Petersburg, Florida, I got a similar response to people. They had roped off the black community in order to make this assault on us, right? So this is what they did. 9 months later, but we didn't just take it like that. We started fighting back as soon as it happened. I had a press conference within the hour, and there was all kind of media that came out, and I think there's something like 1 million people have viewed that press conference since then. And there's this young woman who was at the time one of the so-called unindicted co-conspirators. Her name is Akilia Naik. We ran her for city council in St. Petersburg, Florida. St. Petersburg, Florida ain't like Newark. St. Petersburg, Florida is only about 18% African population there. Only 18%. But we ran somebody for city council. We ran a Solidarity Forces, a white guy for mayor, who's one of the unindicted co-conspirators. He's now somebody who's been charged. We ran him for mayor, and he ran for mayor under the slogan, unity through reparations. So we putting reparations out, using the electoral campaign to make this thing happen. This is the first time, by the way, that Barack Hussein Obama ever involved himself in a local election. And he involved himself in a local election by coming out and endorsing the opponent that we had in that city. So there was a lot of attention, a lot of interest by the state on this stance, this politic that we were involved in. And so it would be in April, I think either the 18th or the 28th of April, that they finally indicted us. So I had to, on May 2nd, I had to show up in Tampa, Florida, where after they had indicted me to what was supposed to be an arraignment. I show up in Tampa, Florida. Penny Hess shows up in Tampa, Florida that same day. And then on the 8th, another one of the so-called unindicted co-conspirators had to show up as well. They booked me. They photographed me, they mugshot me, they fingerprinted me after putting me in leg irons. You understand? Leg irons. They got me in leg irons, like some kind of slave and what have you, and handcuffed behind my back. So then they take me and leave me in a cell with leg irons on, right, for a couple of hours before they bring me down to the court where the arraignment is supposed to happen. And they bring me down to the court before where the arraignment is supposed to happen because it's supposed to be like a humiliating experience. I walk in to court. I'm hobbled in leg irons, right? And this is a statement that they're making to the African community. I'm hobbled in leg irons, handcuffed, walking into this courtroom. And so they were generous, they said. They gave me a bond. They gave me a bond, a $25,000 bond. I forgot how they characterized it, where you don't have to put up the money. And then and they gave me a bond, and they gave me I have to report once a week, like I'm convicted of something. I have to call somebody once a week to let them know where I am. And if I want to leave town, I have to let them know. I have to get permission in order to be able to leave town. So I'm here. The state had to give me permission to be here with you today, right? And this is the process that we've been involved in. So they said, why would they do this? They said they're doing it because I'm a Russian agent. They said I'm a Russian agent because the Russians paid us to talk about genocide. The Russians had us to get signatures on petitions charging the United States with genocide against African people that we wanted to take to the United Nations. They said the Russians are the ones who paid us to be opposed to the carnage, billions of dollars that's being spent murdering people in Ukraine and Russia. That our position is that this is something that the United States started a long time ago, and that's the deal. And so they said the Russians, we said this because the Russians paid us to say that, and that the Russians paid for the campaign, the election campaign that we were involved in. And that's one of the reasons this book is really significant, because here's clear evidence that we initiated a campaign against genocide when we put the United States on trial. For the first time in history, that black people put the United States on trial for what it has done to us. We put the United States on trial. We didn't just go there just talking about the white man is this and that. We used international law as the basis for the trial. And part of the international law that we used was the United Nations Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. That United Nations passed that in 1948. The United Nations did that, and the United States refused to even ratify it, and wouldn't ratify that convention because they were concerned that the Indians, the native people here, and black people would take them to the world court around what they were doing to us. this is one of the reasons this is important. I want you to see this, read this, and everybody to read this, because this is part of the evidence that we're going to take into a trial that we pulled together a trial ourselves of the United States in 1982, November 13th and 14th in 1982. We had a trial of charging the United States with genocide, among other things. Do you know what genocide is according to international law? This is the United Nations wrote this, not me, not the African People's Socialist Party, not the UHURU movement, the United Nations, the Convention of Genocide and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, reads in part, Article 1, the contracting parties confirm that genocide, whether committed in time of peace or in time of war, is a crime under international law, which they undertake to prevent and to punish. Article 2, in the present convention, genocide means any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such. A, killing members of the group. B, causing serious bodily harm or mental harm, serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. C, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. D, imposing measures intended to prevent birth within the group. E, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. And then Article 3 says the following acts shall be punishable. A, genocide. B, conspiracy to commit genocide. C, direct and public incitement to commit genocide. D, attempt to commit genocide. And E, complicity in genocide. This is international law. In 1952, black people went to the United Nations. Paul Robeson was associated with that movement. William Patterson. There's a whole book called We Charge Genocide. I'm sure they have it here. We Charge Genocide. Where black people went before the United Nations to take the United States before the United States nation charging with genocide. Wrote several hundred pages of documentation of what was happening to black people as evidence of genocide that's being committed against us. And of course, the United Nations did not agree with that. In fact, the guy who wrote the Genocide Convention, his name is Raphael Lemke. He was a Polish Jew. And the thing that they made clear that genocide have nothing to do with black people, have nothing to do with the indigenous people killed. In fact, there was no such word called genocide when they killed more than 10 million African people in Congo alone. And if you calculate the number of African people died in the process of the Atlantic slave trade, if you count the numbers of people they've killed, you know, even just adding George Floyd to one of the most recent glaring examples of it, you know, clearly, you know, that black people would fit that definition, but they don't want that to be something that's viable, that's realistic, etc. And so there was no such word as called genocide. Only time they created the thing of genocide is when white people were killing white people. Only time the Genocide Convention became real is when white people were killing white people. And it's something that's being used against black people and other people since that time. Because what they've done with the Genocide Convention is contrive the notion that the worst crimes in history were committed against white people. And, I mean, which is ridiculous. I mean, look at, you can't even find an indigenous person walking the streets here in what we call Nuuk. They're living in concentration camps. They're called Indian reservations if they live at all. They're putting children in cages at the southern border in this country. No such word as genocide didn't apply to anybody else, and so that's been one of the things we've affected by. So they said that the Russians, I'm a Russian agent, because of the Genocide Convention, because the Russians paid us to run campaigns for reparations, and because we opposed the war that they involved in Ukraine. And this is common history to us. You know, they're talking about this war. They're fighting to protect the noble Ukrainians. This garbage that they're putting out when they overthrew the legitimate elected government the United States did in 2014. They overthrew the government, chased them out of the country and what have you, etc., and then replaced them with these forces associated. They say they hate Nazis, but the forces who they replace them with are associated with Nazis and things like that. So anyway, this is how they're trying to flip history. And the problem, of course, is that they're engaged in a real serious kind of crisis. This whole social system is experiencing serious crisis. It was not black people. It was not the UHURU movement. It was not the African People's Socialist Party or Omali Yeshitela that was chasing the Vice President of the United States through the halls of the U.S. Capitol, talking about hanging him. We are not the ones that defecated on the hollowed halls, on the floors of the hollowed halls of the U.S. Capitol. We are not the ones who stuck our feet up on the desk of the so-called third most powerful elected official in this country. White people did that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I haven't heard about a single flashbang grenade going off as a consequence of that.
Yeah.
So this was the assault that was made on us because the system is in a serious crisis. And part of the crisis is also reflected in the fact that for a long period of time, they have been able to get away with, let us say, the United States and other colonial powers, with dominating the whole world without any contest from anybody else with any power. The Soviet Union had collapsed. It was no longer a factor in what they were doing. The so-called multipolar world didn't exist. It was just the United States calling the shots. And because they were calling the shots like that, they could treat people any kind of way they wanted to treat people without having to worry about what their image would look like internationally. And that was really important to them because they're trying to influence people around the world that they should do business with the United States because the United States got the best system at all. They had a contest in the early on with the Russians. In 1917, that's when the law that they used against me, part of it came about in 1917, a so-called Espionage Act of 1917. That's what part of it stems from. And this is the time where they're scared. In 1917, what else was happening in 1917? Russian Revolution. What else was happening in 1917? Marcus Garvey was happening in 1917, and you saw anti-colonial struggles happening all around the world. They don't mention that. They don't mention the 1916 Red Summer that happened in this country. Black people being killed and fighting back everywhere. So you have this convergence of interest of the colonized peoples around the world, the Russian Revolution talking about workers of the world, etc. And so they're fighting for their very lives, and they come up with they construct these laws that's supposed to be around democracy and protecting freedom, etc. But they're laws that are determined to maintain this oppression that black people don't get no freedom.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can't explain how the FBI cut his teeth. J. Edgar Hoover, who headed the FBI, cut his teeth doing what? Investigating Marcus Garvey.
Yeah.
The progress of the so-called FBI was that they hired the first black FBI agents in history. They put him there because they needed somebody black to infiltrate Marcus Garvey's black organization. So this is what we are talking about.
Yeah.
They put me on trial. But I didn't write the First Amendment of the United States Constitution.
Right.
They wrote it.
Yes.
The First Amendment said I'm supposed to have the right to free speech.
Yes.
I'm supposed to have the right to say what I want to say. I can say Russia, Russia, Russia if I want to say Russia.
Yep, that's right.
I can say that. Don't tell me I can't say this. And they're saying, well, it doesn't matter. What you said was content neutral. Doesn't matter. It was content neutral. You're in trouble not because you said it. You're in trouble because they said the Russians paid you to say this.
Yeah.
So even if that wasn't a lie, and it is,
Right.
they're trying to say that if the Russians were paying me to sing the Star Spangled Banner, or if the Russians were paying me to say Mary had a little lamb, that I would still be facing a lifetime prison sentence because that's what 15 years in prison means for me,
Yeah.
right? So this is the kind of garbage that they're throwing at us, but they're using an old playbook. It's one they used in the 1960s, and they could get away with it.
Yeah.
In the 1960s, because they created this hysteria, the hysteria about the Russians, the communists, communism. Some of us are old enough, not y'all, nobody else, me. But some of y'all are old enough really to remember in this country when the whole anti-Russia, anti-communist hysteria was such that even in elementary school, they were teaching you that the bomb might be dropped, and so get under your desk if the why do you get under your desk? Ain't gonna be no desk if the bomb gets dropped. You understand? This is the kind of garbage, so they terrorize everybody, so they make you afraid of the Russians, they're everywhere. How many of you saw the movie, what's the movie where the pod comes when you're asleep, and what's the name of that movie? You know what I'm talking about? Say it again. Invasion of the Body Snatcher. This was an anti-communist, anti-Russian kind of movie. You know, if you go to sleep, they say, gotta be alert. I'm coming here, and I see you up on the sign someplace. What does the sign say that I commented on? Something about terrorism. If you suspect terrorism, what? I wasn't even thinking about terrorism. What the hell are you talking about? If I suspect terrorism, it's wearing a blue uniform. Come on, right? In my neighborhood, right? But they terrorize. They keep everybody afraid, etc. So they run this kind of garbage out, and so you're supposed to be scared of the Russians, and then you're talking about scared of the Russians, then you're talking about scared of black people.
Yeah.
Scared of them black people talking about revolution. Yep. Scared of them Panthers. Scared of all them black people who don't agree with what white world says we're supposed to agree in, and that way you're damn sure that they're going to be able to put me in prison. That's the idea.
Yeah.
Scare them, then split the settler population in this country. Split them up. Create these divisions here that won't allow them to think straight. And also do the same thing with so-called leftists and communists, etc. And many of whom are just as scared of black people as the Trumpists are scared of us. You understand? What? Black people come to power? Hell, I'm scared to walk in the black community after dark. And you talking about these niggas taking power? You know, so this is the left is just as much guilty of this and so every time we start trying to talk about being free, and the first thing you start hearing is, well, what about the white people? I'm talking about being free. They say, well, what about the... You're going to do like everybody else. You know, take your chances like the rest of us. Get a damn job. Pee in the bottle. That's what we have to do. You understand? What do you mean? What about the white people? White people are human beings like every goddamn body else. Why we have to have a special thing for the white people? No, you join with the rest of humanity to overturn a social system based on slavery and colonialism. That's what you do. That's what about the white people. So they make the assumption that they can use that same old playbook, but what they did not anticipate, this brother's trying to help me with the mic. What they did not anticipate is that right now, I mentioned this is the first time. Remember they killed Malcolm? You didn't see no white leftists or anybody demonstrating they killed Malcolm. They killed Malcolm X. Yeah. And they killed King. It was us out there who they had to put the tanks around the White House because they didn't know what we was going to do because we were burning down Washington. I said we, or FBI, when I say we, this is metaphorically speaking. You understand? And so they had to put the FBI, but you didn't have white people out there doing stuff around. Fred Hampton died. You didn't hear the white forces talking about that then. It wasn't like when they killed those students. And where were those students that they killed? Kent State. When the white, they thought it was going to be a revolution because they killed them white students. White went crazy, you know, etc. Attain an element of sanity, I should say. But the point is that now, when they attacked us, they couldn't just come to the poorest sector of the black community. They had to go to the white community too, which was extraordinary for them. And so they got these white people handcuffed behind their backs, searching them, taking them through the entire thing. And part of it is there are 130 some odd cities where we have white people working under your leadership, white people working under your leadership, talking about reparations and fighting against genocide against black people. 130 some odd cities right now. That's what it is. And if they don't have that stuff anymore, where they can just have an absolute solidarity with all the white people, they don't have that anymore. We've taken that away from them. Which is not to say there are not some white people who are like that, but there's some Negroes like that too. But the point is that we've penetrated that and we've affected their ability to just do the same kind of thing now that they did then. And the other thing that's really important is we've created something like 50 some odd economic institutions. African People Socialist Party has. You know, where's the brother Jamie? Jamie here, this brother here, I understand he thinks he can do a little something with basketball. I'm messing with him now. You know I'm messing with him. Where's Jamie's mama? Jamie's sister posing as his mama. But the fact is that I'm talking about the most economically depressed sector of St. Louis. And you know what I'm talking about, where the children, in most of our communities, where the children play basketball in the streets. They make these makeshift, sometimes get bicycle rims, make the hoops out of themselves. So we saw that. And then what we did was we raised $160,000. $160,000. We put a first-rate basketball court in the middle, in the heart of all of this oppression. Black politicians who were in office tried to stop us from doing it. If you did this stuff, then black people just gonna be out there shooting each other, etc. So we embrace the community and have the community participate in this process because people in the process of changing the world change themselves. Right. Black people don't want to live like that. You understand? And so we initiate that. And Jamie gonna come to St. Louis too. And he's gonna help us put together programs on the ground for some of these African people. It's got this sports court. I forgot exactly what it is. The technology where you don't just run on just concrete or etc. It's a sports court kind of material that protects your legs, your knees, and stuff like that. That's there. We did that. You know what we did it with? Reparations money. You know where the reparations money came from? From white people who said, we unite with the call for reparations from white people to black people. This is what they said. And they $160,000 basketball court that's there. This is the kind of work that we've done. When they came to my house at 5 o'clock in the morning, my wife and I were sitting around. I'm getting ready to go to the gym because I'm trying to do a little something to stay around as long as I can, right? And she is prepared because we have a doula program that's happening later that morning. That morning we have 16 women, African women, who we are taking into doula training, how to be doulas. We're doing that because in St. Louis, there are enough black babies die in the first year of life to fill 15 kindergarten classes every year. The city is not doing anything about it. Biden is not doing anything about it. But we're doing something about it. And this is the problem. Because we show African people there is an alternative to living like a slave. If you don't like slavery, then don't be a slave. If you don't like the fact that we don't have any resources, then let's get together and get some resources. Yeah. Let's change this thing. But if you do it, then you expose them for not doing it, and they don't like that, so the Russians must have shown you to do it. Yeah. It's an extraordinary notion. It's a racist notion that somehow we don't have enough sense to know we are oppressed. Yeah. We don't have enough sense to organize in our own interests, so somebody white had to tell us to do it. Yeah. Well, anyway, we're fighting like hell. So I have to be on the 28th of this month. Our lawyers filed a motion to dismiss the charges because they said this is free speech. There's never in history, even using this law that we're talking about now, this law that they created in 1917, nobody has ever been put on trial or indicted for just speech. Usually they had to say you did something other than say something. But this instance is a free speech question, that's clear. So we say that they call themselves putting us on trial, but they're putting themselves on trial. Because if the truth be told, it's the African People's Socialist Party and the UHURU movement right now that's fighting for free speech, and the United States government is fighting against free speech. So we are the ones who are defending the right for free speech. Just as it has been historically, black people have fought for democracy, and democracy in this country has been defined by the struggles of black people. So here the United States government gonna lock me up in prison for the rest of my life for using free speech, but they're gonna have to, they put themselves on trial as far as I'm concerned. Because we ain't gonna stop talking. Right. We ain't gonna stop the struggle to be free. That's never gonna end. It never has ended up to now. So I just want to say those things, and then finally, I know you're waiting for the finally because I see eyes glazing over. And finally, here's the book. In 1980, we decided that we had to build a reparations movement because the reparations is not new. We didn't invent it. It's been around for a long time. And those of you who are lucky enough to have met her would have been confronted with Queen Mother Moore. Yep. Extraordinary woman who everywhere she went, she said, children, y'all got to say something about reparations. Used to characterize herself as the oldest revolutionary in the world, right? Yeah. But she was one of those who really pushed reparations. There were others other than her. But reparations never was a mass movement before. Never was a mass demand. Masses of people were not familiar. If you went to the right meeting, black nationalist meeting or something like that, you might hear something about reparations. But people weren't talking about reparations, generally speaking, not the masses. Right. So we said that in order for the reparation to be real, it has to be a demand that comes from the masses of the people. We have to turn reparations into a household word. That's what we said. And then the other thing we said is that it's not good enough to talk about reparations just for slavery. What we did was we brought to this tribunal that we're talking about evidence, documentation that shows that the rate of exploitation of African people has gone greater since slavery than it did during slavery. So the value of wealth that they steal from black people and have stolen from black people, that's going on even right now. The terror that they wage against black people happening right now. I'm not talking about some reparations, because this is one of the tricks they try to use. There's nobody alive now who was enslaved. What the hell? We're still enslaved. That we are fighting for everything that's due us as black people. Yes. How in the hell are you going to say that's we're not, when you have a life, Africans with a lifespan 6 to 7 years shorter than white people in this country, how the hell you stealing even life from black people? How the hell are you going to be able to justify that when black people are going to be watching the Olympics and everywhere all around the Olympics they're going to see black people making all winning everything. And yet we dying before the people who we're beating. No. That you can't make that work. Ain't that right, Jamie? That's Jamie. Right. Jamie, you know, Barack Hussein Obama, he won a lot of people because he seemed to have a left-hand jump shot. But the point is that it's ridiculous that the conditions of existence that we suffer from today. The fact is that there's a dual labor market here. We don't get paid the same amount of money doing the same amount of work that somebody else does. We do more work and get less paid. And then, that's why, Queen Mother Dorothy Lewis used to always say, when people say, well, we want to have a movement for jobs, she said, jobs here, they ain't paid us for what we've already done. There was full employment under slavery. Right. Everybody had a job, and you didn't have to pee in the bottle in order to get a job either, right? So this is the reality that we are confronted with. So this whole notion, so we said, let's take this tribunal, let's prove it first of all, because this is the time in the 80s. The 80s, black people were characterized as welfare queens, African women, welfare queens, that somehow we living off the tit of white people and that, etc. And white people are being exhausted having to give so much money to black people, etc., etc. And you had even intellectuals and scholars writing, books on this stuff, and we were being buried by this. And so we said, no. We're gonna make the reparations demand happen. Because black people are being put on this defensive, that we got to defend ourselves. We didn't volunteer to come here. Jane, I know this might be a disappointment, but black people did not decide 400 years ago, they might invent basketball and NBA in the United States. Let's get a jump on it and get there early, so we can beat the draft or something. No. It didn't happen that way. They kidnapped us, didn't they? We didn't volunteer. They came and they got us. And the other thing that's really important, because you got this group of people who work, in my estimation, for the government, who somehow talk about how reparations is just for black people in this country. We are owed reparation because of an attack that was made on Africa.
That's right.
Yes. That's how we got here. They attacked Africa. That's how they got here. And that's why Africa is starving and poor too. Because we're picking cotton and digging ditches and building buildings and things like that in this country, where we're not doing it in Angola, we're not doing it in places like Sierra Leone and other places, etc. Ain't that right? Right. That's the reality that we're confronted with. So anyway, they said, we want to prove that reparations are due to us. We had this extraordinary historian. We had John Henry Clark was supposed to be there. And he couldn't make it, so he said he's sitting Leonard Jeffries. This is the thing that thrust Leonard Jeffries on the world stage. Ask him. He came there, he made this incredible presentation. I was talking to somebody, I did an interview this morning with somebody in California. He said, I read it, he said just Leonard Jeffries' testimony alone could have been a book. Right? I mean, because the thing is, we had to show that a crime had been committed. Okay, so we were better off before you guys showed up. African people in this country are the only people who didn't come here looking for a better way of life.
That's right.
We lost a better way of life to those who did come here looking for a better way of life, right? And so we wanted to prove that something happened to us, that you did something to us, that a crime had been committed. So Leonard Jeffries, he spoke longer than anybody in this whole thing. So Jeffries was one of the presenters. Tupac's mama was there. Afeni Shakur testified about how the federal government, the FBI, counterintelligence and counterinsurgency made assault on our movement. She's brilliant testimony by her. And she said, my 11-year-old son is here too. You know what she was talking about, don't you? Pop was there at the time that this happened. Somebody was talking about all these incredible voices who were there at this time. They had people who experienced Attica, where Governor Rockefeller murdered 42 people at Attica during a prison protest that was happening there. We had people there from Admiral Holman Prison, Comrade young brother Mafundi Lake, who built the prison movement in Alabama, etc. And we had all kinds of testimony. Kwame Bray, who is the one who created the Black is Beautiful movement, was one of the persons testifying on the theft of black culture. So it was an extraordinary kind of event. And then we used international law. He said, here's the law. Here is the law. Then we had an international panel of jurors. We had somebody from Senegal. We had somebody from France. We had somebody from Barbados. We had somebody from Congo. We had somebody from South Africa sitting as jurors on this, and somebody, a white person from this country, sitting as jurors in this, and heard all the testimony. And they found the United States guilty of the crimes that we're talking about, including genocide, including violation of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of Genocide, and that they owed us at least $4.1 trillion just in labor alone. That was in 19. That was that was a real understatement. But for the first time in history, the amount of value, an attempt was made to quantify the amount of value stolen from black people. So how much? How much? How much? And we said that 400 years is too long to owe anybody any damn thing. You understand? So we want payback, right? And we agree with James Brown, the big payback, right? So this is what we did with that movement. And this is one of the reasons it was such an important event. And then just a couple of months ago or less, to show you the impact of the work that we've done, part of the impact of the work that we've done is that we saw the CARICOM, the Caribbean community, economic community, just did a study indicating that just for what they've done to us in the Caribbean, to black people, that they owe something like $131 trillion.
That's about right to me.
That's just for the Caribbean. And they've calculated, this is not just some empty phrase. People, they calculated it, etc. and say, this is how we come to these conclusions. Which is more money than the gross domestic product of everything in the world. In other words, just in the Caribbean, they owe us more money than what exists. You understand? And they've got us on the defenses talking about welfare, that we living off welfare. No, the reality is they've been living off welfare from us for a long period of time. And once you know that,
That's right.
once you know that, and then it exposes everything else that we are talking about, because you can't take some 16-year-old kid and tell them that I'm putting you in prison forever because you stole a purse or because you did this or that. You create the worst kind of conditions for us, and people then are armed to fight back. They begin to organize, begin to think, have a different mindset about our reality in this world. That's why they don't want you to learn history in Florida and many other places. That's why they would attack me at 5 o'clock in the morning, because I'm telling this, and they don't want, this is the story they don't want told. So I wanted to say those things, and I think you should get this book on November 4th, because we didn't take this laying down.
That's right.
We've been involved in huge struggles. Sister Lisa here has been on the front lines. Bakra has been on the front lines of this struggle. All these forces who are working with our movement have been here on the front lines. And then talk about front lines, right away when it was known we were doing this, I mean, Sister Patrice said, send me 75 of them books.
That's right. That's right.
I want about 75 of them books right Now. You understand? And plus she's got all the other books. You understand?
That's
Because
right.
this is a part of the struggle.
Yes.
They don't want this to exist.
Yes.
They don't want
Yes.
information to get to our people. They want to control everything that
Yep.
we think.
Yep.
That's why you get put in Facebook jail.
Yep.
That's why Zuckerberg and the rest of them ban them so that you can't say anything that you have to learn another language just to talk on Facebook, right? Yeah, because if it pops up this way, you are not going to be heard or seen, etc.
Right.
That's the world we live in.
Yep.
But that's the world we find intolerable. That's why we've done this book. That's why we're organizing, because black people have a responsibility to be free.
Yes.
It's a responsibility that we have.
Yes.
Humanity suffers.
Yes.
Humanity suffers as a consequence of African people living under colonial domination, and that's what we have. We live, and this has been a missing element that most people who call themselves progressives and revolutionaries and communists and Marxists, etc., miss the boat. We agree with Marx about this whole concept of being modes of production, that within which all life and all social activity occur. The thing is that we believe that the missing link in this issue of modes of production, one that was touched on by Marx, but we think not completely understood, is that we live within a colonial mode of production. That European feudalism didn't just go away. What took European feudalism away? The attack by Portugal first on Africa, and 600 years ago, that initiated this slave trade, trading black people all around the world. This is what created the world economy. Never was a world economy until they attacked Africa and began to ship us all around the world against our will and create a whole colonialism.
Yes.
A colonialism became the mode of production within which all activity in the world was occurring and still occurs even today. And so we're breaking out of that, and that's why every time you're talking about revolution, where has the revolution been sent? They tell us about a Cold War. There's a Cold War. What Cold War? It's Cold War because Russians and Americans, white people were not fighting. Wasn't cold for Lumumba.
Yeah.
Wasn't cold for the people in Vietnam. Wasn't cold for us in these streets here. People around, colonized people have been fighting for our lives forever. But they characterize as Cold War because they don't see us as being significant.
Right.
We see ourselves as being significant. We have agency as a people, and that's something that this charge that they're making against us would deny us, that somehow we don't have agency. And like Muhammad Ali said a long time ago, he might have said it even when he was Cassius Clay, when they talk about our stance on Ukraine, to paraphrase him, ain't no Russian ever called me a nigger.
That's right.
And no black people that we know got Russian last names.
Come on.
That's right.
The last names we got came from colonizers, from
Yes.
people own black people,
Yes.
etc.
Yes.
So don't tell me who I can talk to or not talk to. They don't want me to talk to nobody except them.
Right.
And then
Right.
talk to them, and I have to say boss.
Yeah.
They have changed a lot. They have changed. I have to admit, they don't. They've changed it. They've moderated the language. Like they don't just say nigger, they say Mr. Nigger, etc. So the conditions, the circumstances remain the same that we live under, even if they call it by some other name.
Yes.
So I wanted to say those things. I know I talked a long time, but I turn it back over to you. Thank you so much, Sister Patrice.
Before the chairman takes questions and answers, I just want to make an announcement because he just mentioned it briefly.
Yes.
On November 4th,
Tell us about it.
we're going to D.C. We do an annual march on the White House. This year, the march is Build the Anti-Colonial Free Speech Movement. I'm going to hand out these, and we're looking to take at least one bus from Newark. So if you have signed on the sheet there, leave your information so we can be in contact with you when we get all the logistics in place. Thank you. UHURU.
Also, we're about to have question and answers. I want to also acknowledge some other people. Sister Ikenge Mayale, she's the chairman's chief of staff right arm, everything person. She makes it go. She really, really does. And then we have...
She is my response to dementia.
I also just want to recognize some other brothers here. Brother Mattoon, we have Brother Ali, Brother Shabaka, Brother Lefty, I think, Left. Yeah, so, and Comrade Ali.
Ali.
Right, Ali.
Ali worked in one of those institutions I'm talking about, the Friends store in Philadelphia.
And also, I just want to make another real quick announcement. Then I'm going to just ask Comrade Penny Hess to just come up here and give us about 5 minutes and tell, because people need to hear from her. One of my friends here said he had a white friend didn't want to come. And he's the one who should have come, but anyway, I don't think he's his friend any longer, by the way. But anyway, I just want to make another real quick announcement while we're here, because we have to organize around this. In this area, in this community, Essex County, they want to stop the 24 bus, the 44 bus, and the 31 bus. That's going to devastate Essex County and me. I take those buses. So they want to shut them down October 8th. I just found out yesterday. Thank you so much, Sister Monica, for letting me know. I just found out about it yesterday, and then closing it down October 8th. So we got some organizing to do. Also, I now want to call Sister Penny Hess, and then we're going to have Q&A, and then the books. The books. Here you are. Thank you.
UHURU. I just want to say, yes, very briefly, I just want to thank you, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, for that incredible presentation, and also for the amazing book and work of the first tribunal on reparations to African people in 1982. Very powerful. And I just want to say that I am the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee, which is the organization of white people that the chairman was talking about, under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, with the mandate to go into the white community and organize other white people to take a stand that we owe reparations to African people, the understanding that the assault on Africa, the enslavement of African people, the assault on Africa itself, and the ongoing resources that are stolen from Africa every single day on the land stolen from the indigenous people is what has created the wealth of white people, and we sit on the pedestal of the oppression of African people. And that if we want to see a world without war, a world of peace, then African people must be free and liberated, and reparations must be paid to African people. I want to salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Lisa Davis, and the source of knowledge, and it's an honor to be here. UHURU and unity through reparations.
And she's facing 10 to 15 years in prison for advocating that. I just want to say real quickly, and then we're going to open up definitely Q&A. Carolyn Bryant, who is the reason Emmett Till was murdered.
Yeah.
Nobody spent any time in jail at all. She was protected by the United States government, and ironically, it was under the Trump administration, not because of Trump, but under his administration, that the Department of Justice was forced to open up an investigation into Carolyn Bryant and her role in the murder of Emmett Till. But it was the Biden administration, the Department of Justice under the Biden administration, that closed the case, said they could find nothing wrong, but yet they got a whole lot wrong with Penny Hess. Also, St. Louis is right next to Ferguson, where Mike Brown was murdered, and that was one of the many reasons that the chairman ended up going out to St. Louis, to that area, to organize. They began to really build up that community, while the Department of Justice, and it was Obama who was president then, was asked to investigate Darren Wilson, who murdered Mike Brown, who didn't serve a second in prison. They were asked to investigate him, and they cleared him. They said they could find nothing wrong. But it's the chairman right in that area who they're going after. So I just wanted to make those connections for people. And now, do we have Q&A? Questions? Hand right there. Brother? Yes. You have a question? You need. Can you hear me? Yeah, you got to come up. Can you? I'll speak up. Oh, the mic. Right. Thank you.
Out of New Jersey. Heard the chairman years ago. I'm old Jacksonville boy, so I'm down the road from me. And I heard you a long time ago on the Dead Prayers intro was very inspirational to me as a young black man growing up in Jacksonville, Florida. I went to Daytona Beach Community, Daytona Beach, BCC as well. My question was in regards to a brother that I think that we definitely can't forget, H. Rap Brown, Imam Jamil Al-Amin, and his situation down in Atlanta, Georgia. What's being done to bring some attention or some support to those brothers down there? And as well, from a Muslim aspect, that brother gave a great deal of his life to the struggle of our people. I happened to go down with my imam out of Jacksonville, Florida, right after that happened as a young man when I was learning Sutra. And I really got an opportunity to see some of the behind the scenes things that happens with brothers like yourself and brothers who dedicated their lives to the struggle of us. I wanted to just, bring that up in regards to is there any attention being brought to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that's an extraordinarily important question that you just raised. When I came to know RAP, I was a member of SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And he is the person who followed the man who was known as Stokely Carmichael as chairman of the SNCC. And Stokely is now known as Kwame Ture. Kwame Ture, yeah. Right. And Kwame, when he moved from chair of SNCC, he said, this guy here talking about rap, that this guy, you think I'm bad, this guy is the one. I was locked up in prison when rap came through Florida. He came to Jacksonville, Florida, in fact.
The Imam brought him there.
How's that?
My Imam Jamil Al-Amin.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, they brought him there. I was in prison. That was before he had converted to Islam. And I was in prison because they put me in prison for 5 years because in 1966, I snatched a 8 by 10 foot mural that was hanging in the hall, the wall of the city hall, that depicted African people like grotesque, human beings, big pink lips all over our faces and elongated limbs and stuff like that. And so I ended up snatching that mural off the wall. They charged me with 11 offenses, and one of them was for grand larceny, and they gave me a 5-year sentence. So I'm in prison when rap comes through. And the governor was a guy named Clark Kirk at the time. And he comes through, rap is in Jacksonville, Florida. And Kirk, they've hired these thugs to try to harass and rap when he's speaking. And rap is there, and Kirk, the governor, came up on the platform, and he was a grandstand. He's going to grandstand. He threw his arm around rap, and rap said, "Take your hands off me, hunky." This is the governor. You don't speak to him. So he was an extraordinary force. And then, as you mentioned, he went to Atlanta. He had been in prison. He went to Atlanta because he had been in prison because he was organizing against drug pushers, especially in the New York area and other places. And so he was in prison. And he went into Atlanta after he got out of prison. And he built this entire community in Atlanta. This most peaceful place in there. He created, economic development projects in that community where he was. And then eventually he was assaulted. I don't remember the date of it, and an agent, an African agent, Negro agent was killed. And Rap was on the run for a while, and they captured him in Alabama. And they've had him locked up since then. But I think it's really important to recognize that rap has been under assault, indictment, oppression, forever. There's not been a time since, we went into the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee where the U.S. government has not been doing what it can to crush him, stop him, especially because he was extremely effective. He was an extremely effective organizer, and he was an extremely effective spokesperson because he spoke to young people in particular of the working class. He was not one of these persons who were, highfalutin and you couldn't understand. In fact, if you buy his book, Die Nigga, Die, I think it was, it's just a plain spoken, kind of thing, and nothing fancy about it at all. So he's an incredible force, and combined with that is when the U.S. And other colonial powers succeeded in crushing the Soviet Union. They played a big role in some of the same areas of the world we talk about now. Afghanistan, they overthrew the government. They initiated this. They created the modern jihad that's created by the United States government. They're the ones who trained forces because they wanted to they wanted to create a Vietnam for Russia. And Afghanistan was the place that they decided to do that. But anyway, rap was just an incredibly significant force. And I agree that what we are doing is that on November 4th, on July 8th, was it July 8th? Yeah, we had a conference. And among the things that we did in that conference, created this anti-colonial free speech movement. And part of what that free speech movement calls for is freeing Jalil al-Amin, among other people. Because since the attack on us, they didn't just attack us. They are responsible for, they attacked those people who were in Atlanta, who fighting against Cop City, 61 indictments there. They 5 students in Tampa, Florida. They indicted. All the things they were doing was trying to oppose the governors say you can't teach black history anymore. They're indicted. There are people all around who come under assault. They kidnapped a diplomat from Venezuela, Alex Saab, and got him in prison here now. So we've got all of this stuff. And we're also calling for dropping the charges against Assad Shakur.
That's right.
That's one of the demands. So we got all of these demands that we're promoting. And one reason that's important is because there's an assumption here. The Democratic Party never promised you nothing, so you can't say they lied. You can't say Obama lied. He ain't never said he was going to do nothing for you. He ain't never did nothing for you. In fact, he was real honest. Except he suggested he would wink at you every now and then, you understand? And like I said, he had a left-hand jump shot. He could imitate Al Green. That's all he had to do. He didn't have to say he was going to do anything for black people, and he didn't.
Right.
He didn't. And I got ate up once. I was in New Jersey, in Newark. I went to a meeting, and I was telling this guy's not representing. This was in 2000. What year was this? Do you remember? Anyway, we were organizing the Black is Black thing, but Obama didn't. And Biden, they didn't do anything, for us. Didn't raise any of these questions. So we're raising the questions.
Yeah.
And people think that you don't have any alternative because the Democratic Party is not going to put it. Democratic Party is not going to put the fact that they're denying the Navajo, the indigenous people here, water on their own land. This is their own country and store. They're not supposed to have any water. The Democratic Party is not going to put on the agenda the CPS, the so-called Child Protective Services. That's stealing black people, babies all around this country. This happens every day, and they humiliate black people. Somehow black mothers don't know how to take care of their own children. We took care of your children. Black women nurtured your children, grew your children, and what have you. When you were going to feminist meetings and shit like that, you left your children with black women. That's just the objective reality that I'm talking about here. And so that's not going to be on Biden's agenda, stopping that. Gentrification, the Democratic Party and Biden, they're not talking about gentrification. It's killing us everywhere. People talking about Newark now, looks kind of black now, but there's no telling. Washington, D.C., Harlem, New York. Look what's happened there. Every place you look, I mean, this is an assault that's being made on our people. And you want to talk about gentrification, the greatest example of gentrification you can find is this country.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so we say there is an alternative. They're not going to put what we need on our agenda.
Right.
They're not going to put it on the platform. They got an election coming up 2024. And they just taking black people for granted, kind of. Well, they didn't absolutely take it for granted because they did. What was it, a statue or something they made of Emmett Till?
They're going to name something after Emmett Till.
Yeah, name something after Emmett Till.
And they gave us Juneteenth.
And we got Juneteenth with the red, white, and blue flag.
Yeah.
Right? And
Harriet Tubman statue.
and the Harriet Tubman. So you got a statue.
George Floyd right there.
Yeah, and the other thing you got is in every city
Yep.
you can go to almost, you got a Martin Luther King Street. So they got a Dr. Martin Luther King Drive. They killed King. You ain't got King. You ain't got the Poor People's Program and campaign that he was trying to organize on, but you can get drunk every year. You can get high off of Martin Luther King, etc. So we put our own agenda together. We're taking a people's agenda. This is going to be on November 4th, right before the election. And I don't know the significance of it, but you know, Cornel West has also come out and saying that, you know, he's running for president. We'll see what he's talking about. But he did come out. He did come out and say drop the charges. At least he's come out and said drop the charges, etc. So anyway, that's what we have to demand for everybody. You can't take black people for granted anymore.
That's right.
Anyway, and so right now they're scared to death because Trump, you know, polling something like 20% in the African community. No Republican has ever polled that high. Trump is polling at 20% and 40-some-odd% in what they call the Hispanic community. They ain't Hispanic, really. Spain is white, but that's another story. You know, this is something I just read this morning. So, so Biden is skating on thin ice. You know, the Democratic Party is skating on thin ice. You got to do more now. You just can't do this thing that you've done before and expect just because we're scared of Trump. We're scared of the Republicans that you automatically got our vote. You got to do something for black people.
That's right.
Anyway, thank you. I've spoken a long time. I know I've exhausted you.
Do you have any more questions?
I'd like to make a statement.
Yes.
All right. Brother Omali, first of all, I feel honored, brother. I heard about this get together. Everybody can hear me? Okay, because I got that kind of voice. No,
You got to record it.
So I got to record it?
So yes, there's a mic for the recording.
Okay.
Okay, you go.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
First of all, I'd just like to say, Brother Omali, I really appreciate you, my brother. I'm a native Yorker. My name is Forrest Nance, and I represent Grown Folks Talk and Express Yourself Progressive Podcast Network. And with you coming to North, my dear brother, it would be incumbent upon me as a student of Imam Omali Baraka, all right? And his headquarters is right up here on High Street. My father put me in his organization when I was 15 years of age. And he taught me the Nguzo Saba. I met Ron Karanga, who they were very close at that time, from the US organization.
Yes.
He came to North. So, in the spirit of Omali Baraka, and also for 3 years, all right, I've had a progressive podcast. And I just recorded everything you said, brother. You just made my podcast within the next 2 weeks because I have Dee Terrell coming on from Munich. She's going to talk about holistic mental wellness. I'm going to put you on the following Saturday and play this, all right? But my dear companion here, Ariel, recorded. And also, I'd just like to say, it's been about 20 years since I last came here, and I see where they expanded, but now what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to spend more time here and support Patrice and the staff here at Source of Knowledge. But my dear brother, I just want to say thank you and peace and blessings to all of the people who came out tonight. This was on BAI. This was on WBAI for the last 3 or 4 days straight. I'm surprised you don't have more of us out here. But we need to support each other, all right? And family, if I can, I'll be in a debt of gratitude, Brother Omali, if I can one day bring you on the podcast and just because I do have a nice amount of people that are in my listening audience. I would owe you a debt of gratitude, like I said, if I could bring you on and further push the agenda of the UHURU, if I'm saying it correctly, movement.
UHURU, yes.
UHURU,
Yes.
all right? Because when I was in Amir Baraka's organization, we could say all the Swahili words real good back in the day. You know, Nisa Mehe and Karambe used to do the boot dance and the Shaka Zulu dance and all that stuff. Yeah, I remember that, brother. All right, and we were with the we were with the young. I was with the older brothers when we helped elect and put Ken Gibson in the office. And he was the first black man. And I used to always go out with the brothers on detail and put up the posters back then. Okay, so brothers, peace and blessings to you. And like I said, you have my support. If there's anything I can do, brother, you know, just, you know, I like to stay in contact with you. I'm stay in contact with Patrice and the other sister whose name started with, I think her name is Masani. Yes. I'm going to interview her and push this place because we need to support this place. But thank you. Peace and blessings, my brother. Peace and blessings to the audience here tonight. Thank you.
And we can make sure that we get your contact information and everything because we have a press list and everything that we're building. So please sign right there. Any other questions?
Just
Please.
I just wanted to say that you mentioned Ken Gibson. I met Ken Gibson in a place called Frogmore, South Carolina. He had just lost the election here in Newark. When he first ran for office. And in Frogmore, South Carolina, at that time, the Congress of Racial Equality and with all kinds of forces, including SNCC, were holding schools, teaching people how to run for office. And Ken Gibson was there. That's where I met Ken Gibson. He did come back, and that's when he won that election when he got back here. And I'm just mentioning that because there was a time, even when Africans who were running for office were kind of, sort of part of a movement, you know, kind of, sort of a part of the movement. When I met Gibson, that's what he was. He was a part of the movement at that time. You've got some hustlers since that time who bombed the whole community, like in Philadelphia, you know, the MOVE organization and others, you know, and who got it selected to the White House. But there was a time where people were a part of the movement. So there were other people. Right. The chap in the red and the brother Africa. There you are.
Chuck. Chairman Omali, it's a pleasure and an honor. I just wanted to let you know that we were going to bring Dr. Leonard Jeffries down, but unfortunately he couldn't make it because he was invited to the United Nations.
Oh, right on.
All right?
Splendid, yeah, splendid, yeah.
Yeah, all power to the people.
Power to the people.
All power to the people.
Power!
Hey man, all power to the people.
Yes.
How you doing, Chairman?
I'm well, my Africa. How are you?
Outstanding. Hey, look, I'm gonna get my book. Can I give it to you in Cash App?
You have to talk to this sister here.
Yeah, I might have to get it in Cash App, but I need that thing signed. We forgot that you was coming today.
Yes.
And then I saw it on Justice Reigns on what you call it. I saw
Justice
it on
Reigns.
Yeah, I got flip-flops on and I straight came down here.
All right,
Nah, because I know how important it is to tell you how much we love you.
Right on. Thank
Why
you,
you
sir.
here.
Thank you, sir.
Like, hey, many people don't know the struggle. They don't know what it takes to stand outside the institutions and try to fight for the people. It's hard. People that don't invest, that don't sacrifice their lives, don't know how that walk is. We've been doing this thing here for over 50 years. All power to the people.
Black power to the African nation.
Yeah, black power. Hey, yo, like, you are on my Mount Rushmore of leaders.
Right on.
I mean, I don't know. Every time you come around here, I'm gonna make sure I show up to let you know that. But right here, we're going through a genocide right here in North. Like, people are not saying it. The people that's going through it are the poor people, the people on the bottom. We have a class chasm in our society, in black people.
Of course we do.
And they're suffocating and killing us out here.
Yeah.
And everybody's silent about our murder out here.
Yeah.
If there was a white person in control of City Hall, or white politicians, council people, everybody would be down here. Everybody would be in the streets.
Yeah.
but they have bought off, these black politicians have bought off all the black activists, the black groups. They've paid them off and made them NGO babies. So we out here struggling.
Yeah.
Yo, last week they had my poster posted all around the city buildings. Yeah, they still got them in the city buildings. They got wanted posters of me because I walked up to Rob Baraka and I asked him about the gentrification in North. So he labeled me a rapist, and then he posted my pictures all around. Call me COINTELPRO, call me a CI. Yo, if nobody speaks up, these crimes that he's committing against the people in North are going to go on. Because no other activist groups is standing up to say anything. So like I'm saying, I'm doing this, I'm a baby in this, I'm doing this, I'm probably you like in the 60s, in the 70s. And I'm starting this, we're doing this fight. We can't get a job in the city. My wife has to go work in New York. I have to go other places to go work. I can't go into any facilities around here. So that's how I got a glimpse of the suffering, the pain that you're going through. I mean, and all I want to say is, yo, I'm grateful for people like you because you shine the light on the path I should walk. And every time you show yourself somewhere, if I'm around, I'm going to try to be there to tell you that.
Splendid.
You are a role model to me. All power to you.
Thank you.
Anybody? Manira, after you.
UHURU now. That's why we need freedom, Sister Manira. You know, like Brother Africa said, we got to give you your flowers while you're here. And I salute you, warriors. Salute for all the work that you're doing across the nation, across all of our black and brown communities and poor communities. I had the privilege of being one of the speakers at one of the events that we had here when we had the UHURU movement here. And you know, we was a force to be reckoned then. So they had a unified North, you know, that brought in, you know, Ken Gibson. But right now, today, we need to mobilize a movement right now today to get these people in City Hall. If you talking about black on black crime is happening in City Hall. Black on black crime is happening in the county courthouse. Black on black crime is happening in the state house, as well as when you go into DC, and we know it's in that big house there. But all the black Negro-Pan leadership that we have, it is just an abomination of what they're allowing to happen in our black and brown and poor communities. It's unacceptable, but we need a united front like never before to take these people out of office. They got to get out. We have a total recall that is in position right now against the whole administration at City Hall. We need your help. We need whoever's in North, the Black is Back Coalition, whatever UHURU movements that you, members that you have here now, we need to get assembled right now to get these people out of office. They mean us no good. They have divided this community amongst organizations against organizations, families against families, friends, even people in their family. I don't know, they shut the mic off.
You don't need the mic. You don't need the mic. Go ahead. You don't need the mic.
But anyway,
I don't think it's shut off.
it's just so.
Probably the battle.
I mean, the divide and conquer stuff, we know that's one of their tactics that they use. Not only, you know, the Europeans, the Caucasoids, you know, not only do they divide and conquer us, but we have divide and conquer tactics that's happening with our very own people. But what we need to do, for somebody who said, I know you came to every council meeting, there was, right? Shut them down about your money they owed you. Shut them down about how they was treating the people in the city. Wherever you at now, we need you back here. And we need that united front back here in the city to run these people out of office across this whole state. Across the whole state. Because they have joined in. They have joined in with the national oppression against black and brown and poor communities like never before.
Let me just say a couple of things. I appreciate your comment, sister. For one thing, I think it's really important to make the point that African people do suffer from colonial domination. As I say, we experience national oppression. And the African nation, like any nation, is comprised of all kinds of class forces. And the struggle against colonialism is a struggle for national liberation, but even within the struggle for national liberation, class struggle is raging within the struggle for national liberation. So within our own communities, when we're talking about fighting against this common enemy, what freedom means is different for the African working class than it is for the African petty bourgeoisie. African petty bourgeoisie can achieve freedom that gives it access to some of the quote-unquote privileges that other sectors of the population might experience. But the African working class cannot know freedom like that. We have to overturn this entire relationship that we have to the social system. And so you have this class struggle that's raging inside the struggle for national liberation. That's always been the case. It's always been raging. There are some of us, historically, this trend has been some who want to improve slavery, and some who are saying that slavery has to go. Some who are saying that want to make a better slavery, better colonialism, get all of this and that, and some of us said, like Nat Turner, strike at night and spare no one, right? The thing is that this colonial system has to go, and that's what our commitment has to be. But then we've got this difficult contradiction that we have to deal with, because as you just mentioned, I mean, the whole African nation is grappling with this, but they've got control of the brains of so many of our people. In every place in our community, there's some kind of drug, something that's selling, promoting drugs. You get it in the church, you get it in every store, every liquor store, everything like that, pumping stuff in our communities, preaching stuff. The Democratic Party, the African People's Socialist Party is not the influential party in Newark or most of the black community in this country. The Democratic Party is. The Democratic Party. You know, something like 25% of the base of the Democratic Party, black people who are catching hell from the Democratic Party.
That's right.
So we gotta, how do we make this struggle, organize the majority of the people against colonialism on the one hand, but assuming leadership of that struggle in the hands of the African working class, so that freedom means what we need as opposed to what those who trying to get a piece of the oppression, a piece of the pie. That's the thing that we're constantly working with. What I really would like to see happen, if you can, two things. One, even if I'm not here, I really think supporting a source of knowledge is going to be a really important thing. I can't overstate the significance of that. This is an incredibly powerful, significant institution. That's why I'm able to be here. And somebody said that Little Jeffers was supposed to be here as well. That's testimony about the significance of this institution. And your presence here is something about that. The other thing I would like to make mention of is November 4th. Come to Washington, D.C. on November. We're talking about the Black People's March in the White House. We're not talking about Al Sharpton. This is not Jesse Jackal. This is both of whom represent the Democratic Party. We can go representing ourselves, and we can represent all these other people who are catching hell in this country. We talking about putting these issues. Brothers talking about Imam El-Amin. That's got to be on our agenda. We have to come and take this, to bring this issue and make contacts with all the other people who are going to be there in Washington, D.C., who want and aspire for some of the same things that you want to aspire for. Because what a problem that we have is that Africans will go when Charlotte and say, I'm having a march on the White House. You get all the militants, all the communists, all the black nationalists, they go to be with Charlotte there. But we're talking about getting together ourselves, taking our own agenda. And the Democratic Party is not going to sponsor the buses. We're going to have to raise money right here in Newark to collectively get there. This is the thing that we have to achieve agency ourselves. If we want to get rid of those forces who oppose us in our community, who claim that they represent us in our community, then you got to get with other people who really fighting for the same thing that you're talking about. This is an initiative that's coming from the African working class. And you must join in with this initiative, bring your opposition here to Washington, D.C., bring your posters, bring your flyers. Let everybody who comes there thinks like you know what the hell is happening in Newark. That's one of the things I think you can do and must do and should do. UHURU. Yes, comrade. Yeah.
And then we'll take about one or two more.
Yeah, good to see you, comrade.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I've known Raz Baraka since he was 6 years old.
Uh-huh.
I was very close to his father, and Amina also, of course. And, you know, I knew, you know, what he stood for and so forth at one time in his life, Black Nia Force and stuff like that. But when he went into the Democratic Party, I knew it was all over, you know, because the Democratic Party is the Democratic Party. You're not going to change it, it's going to change you.
That's right, that is true.
So I think, you know, you look at the whole trend of things over the last 30, 40 years, where the hell did the Constitution of the United States go? You know, freedom of speech, forget about it. You know, Patriot Act, authorization for use of military force. Congress hasn't declared war since 1941.
That's right.
We need our Constitution back, and we need a constitutional workers' party, which will be a broad democratic front that will unite all of the workers around their democratic demands, you know, because, you know, we need that working class base of unity to overcome these deep-rooted problems. So, you know, let me just put that little perspective out there to you to think about, something to think about.
Thank you. This is something I've thought about, and this is why it's going to be really important. You want to get that thing, I'm telling you, we can put forth, we're taking a people's platform in Washington, D.C. in November. And what you should have been hearing, in my opinion, my humble opinion, what you should have been hearing is that this is a great opportunity to bring together, to work on this thing that you're talking about. Let all the people come. An issue that we've had in the past is the inability of white leftists to hear us. You know, the thing I'm struggling with throughout the 1960s, through the so-called war against Vietnam, all the polls were showing that the majority of Africans were opposed to it. But the Africans were not in those movements, those anti-war movements. They were white left, and they were always, the question was, well, where are the black guys? Well, the black guys were involved in a war that's happening in Newark, on the streets of Newark, and the streets of every place that we live. And that's what we've been trying to tell you all along. Join the goddamn war. Join this struggle against war for peace. And the people's platform, start this people's platform. The Chicano, Mexicano, Puerto Rican, African people who are here, join with us to go ahead and make this assault. This is how you're going to build what you're talking about. And you're going to build something that's solid. That if they have to kill us out of action. They come at us hard because we represent the essence of the class struggle. The class struggle is concentrated in the colonial contradiction. Yes. That's where it is. So we say, join us. I agree with what you said. I expect to see you in Washington, D.C., carrying high the banner of the workers of the world, you know, struggling against colonial domination of everybody in the world and the colonial construct that's got us all trapped in this horrible situation. Because the truth of the matter is that even when you talk about a constitution, even when you talk about rights, these were rights and constitutions that were created on the backs of enslaved human beings and on the land of indigenous population in concentration camps. So that's the thing, to make that meaningful. To make that meaningful, then it has to start from the core contradictions, which is the two fundamental, the pillars that this whole social system rests upon, the twin pillars of stolen land and stolen labor. That's where it rests upon that. And so I'm just saying that's why let's unite with that and let's kick the ass of the ruling class. That's what it must be. Kick the ass of the ruling class. Yeah. And as quiet as it's kept, and I hope it's not found offensive, but the road to socialism is painted black.
Everyone, because we are in the source of knowledge's house. And because you're so comfortable, I could be here all night. And we just like be at home kicking our shoes off, but I just wanted to also show them some grace and some respect. So we're going to have to wrap this up. But also, let me just say, and I mean this with everything in my heart, I am so appreciative of everybody who came here, and everybody's so supportive, and everybody in Newark, because, you know, we know when they attack the chairperson of our organizations, it was also a direct attack on us.
Yes.
And he's in St. Louis, and people are in Florida. But to know that there were people in Newark, New Jersey, in this area, and East Orange. I'm from East Orange. I don't know why I always say Newark. I want to show East Orange some love, in the Oranges in this area in New Jersey, to know that they would stand there with us and by my side. It means so much. I appreciate all of you. I really do. I know sometimes you all call me. I try to get back to you, but I just want to say how much it's appreciated. Uhuru.
The one final thing I want to mention is this, that you must pay attention to, that something very profound is occurring. One of the reasons they attacked us is because we are organized. We have organization in Africa.
That's right.
Yes.
We're in South Africa.
Yep.
We're in Sierra Leone.
Yep.
We're in Mali. We're in Nigeria. We're in so many places in Africa. We're in the Caribbean. We're in Africa. We have organization in Europe and throughout this country. If you notice what has occurred, that for the first time in history, for example, the United States, the head of the United States Department of Defense is an African. A former general, Lord Austin, has the Defense Department. For the first time in history, the United States Marine Corps, in the first time in its 240-some-odd year history, has given a fourth star, created a four-star general, and put him in charge of AFRICOM, controlling black people on the continent of Africa, and being responsible for the struggle that the United States is involved in against China and Russia right there on the continent of Africa. For the first time in history, they just got it done, I think yesterday or today, the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is a black general from the Air Force. So the whole military apparatus of this country now has a black face. Black people are in charge of the military component of the state in this country. That's a powerful contradiction. So now the struggle of the colonizer has a black face. It's like it's the colonized people who are responsible for committing this mayhem and murder against everybody, and then you've got a sector of the population that I think has been inferred by somebody here who said, look how much progress we done made because we got a black general, right, in these positions. It's a very treacherous and dangerous kind of thing, and I think they intend to make serious war, enhance the war that they're making against Africa and African people. Africa now has the ability to speak with one voice, in part because of the work that we are doing. You hear the same words coming from Africa. You don't hear anybody now talking about fighting against racism. All around the world you hear people talking about fighting against colonialism. Colonialism. And you talk about racism, you're fighting against the ideas in the heads of white people. And racism, the only thing racism is the ideological foundation of colonialism. It's the thing that unites the majority of white population in aggression against all of us who are colonized based on this bogus philosophy. So I just wanted to say those things to you, and again, express appreciation for your allowing me to spend this time with you, and to Comrade dear Sister Patrice for opening up her house to all of us here. So thank you. Izwe le tu Africa.
Yes.